Thank you so much, Sophia, and thank you everyone for joining me today over lunch. I really, really appreciate it. If you are not sure who I am, my name is Michaela Bach, and I work at the University of Illinois Extension as an outreach associate. And for the past, I think officially 2 years now, I have been supporting the local food purchase assistance program, which is also known as Illinois Eats. So this is what you can expect out of today's session. For folks that maybe aren't as familiar with the program, I'll start with a brief overview of what is LFPA, what is Illinois Eats. I'll go a bit into the program impact and highlighting some of the data from 1 year of the program and some of my favorite success stories from the program. We'll then get into the juicy part of today's session, which are the challenges and lessons that we've learned stewarding this program. We'll look ahead, strategies for the future that we would recommend for similar programs, and then we'll wrap up with what you can expect to see from us in the future. I don't think I can leave this slide in good conscience without addressing the adorable goat that's on the slide. This is a goat from Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery, which is a participant in the Illinois Eats program, and the goat just happens to be smiling for the camera for us. Before I launch in today's session, I do want to do a quick poll just to see how familiar folks are already with the Illinois Eats program. Sophia launched it already for me. So please select how familiar you are. We have lots of different options. All right, we'll give the poll 10 more seconds or so. Those answers in. So it looks like most of the folks in today's call have heard of Illinois Eats but are not involved. We have a few folks that about even who are brand new, so welcome. About even with that is someone, someone who's participating in Illinois Eats. And then we have a few folks here today who are participating in Illinois Eats. Thank you all so much. And with that, I will get started. Before I officially start, I do want to say we will have time for questions at the end. But I do certainly encourage you, if you have questions that pop into your head, pop them into the chat. I know I will forget my questions if I don't pop them into the chat or write them down, but Sophia will help me keep track of all the questions that we all have so I can get them answered. So kicking us off, what is Illinois Eats? So Illinois Eats is funded by the USDA's Local Food Purchase Assistance Program. That program was created and provides funding to buy fresh and local foods from socially disadvantaged farmers and deliver those foods to underserved communities at no cost. Illinois received $28 million in funding between LFPA and LFPA plus funding. And a majority of that funding has to be used for purchasing local and minimally processed food. There is some funding that can cover expenses related to admin, such as coordination, storage, and distribution, the things that you have to fund when you are bringing food from farms to communities. And I do want to point out that last week, March 4th, was that last week? I'm not sure. These weeks have felt crazy, but the program in Illinois was officially suspended as of March 4th because this program is entirely funded by the USDA, and we were struggling to get our reimbursements from the USDA. We have heard from other states that the USDA will honor the current round of LFPA. We are waiting to hear confirmation for the state of Illinois. There was an additional round of funding that would have given us another year of the program that has been officially rescinded from the USDA. If you have questions related to that, more than happy to answer what I can and pop them into the chat. It's been the talk of the town, so I felt the need to address it. Um, what I do want to point out as well is that other states received LFPA funding too. Each state received a different amount of funding. Each state decided to implement the program very differently depending on how much funding they received. Illinois was one of the few programs that decided to fund entirely or buy products entirely from socially disadvantaged farmers, which was a suggestion by the USDA, but not a requirement. And a lot of states decided to give their funding directly to their food banks. And while Illinois did certainly fund some food banks, it was important to the state to provide funding to a diversity of organizations beyond just food banks. So the goals of the Illinois Eats program are to support local food producers, particularly socially disadvantaged farmers, to enhance access to fresh and local foods in underserved communities, to build and expand market opportunities for local farmers. We've heard talking to our farmers that, lots of folks can grow food and actually can scale up more food production, but you don't want to do that unless you have a market. So to have a consistent, solid market for our farmers was a huge opportunity, as well as to develop sustainable partnerships between our farmers and community partners in their region. So before the program was officially launched, Illinois Extension held listening sessions throughout the state of Illinois. We heard 30 different listening sessions across the state, and we had over 300 community members attend those listening sessions, including farmers, folks that work at food hubs, folks that aggregate local food, food banks, food pantries, consumers, really anyone who participates in the food system in any way showed up to give us their needs and priorities for shaping the program in Illinois. And I do want to call out that we heard you, we listened to you, and the input that we gathered directly shaped the structure of the program and how it was rolled out. It directly shaped the LFPA application, which is also known as a request for proposal or an RFP. It shaped the technical assistance efforts provided by Illinois Extension and beyond. And it has actually shaped our long-term food system strategy. As the person who read through all the transcripts of the listening sessions, I can say personally that what we learned in our listening sessions, I go back to every single day and how I steer my work. And I wrote a paper, a report summarizing what we learned in our listening sessions, which I would encourage anyone in the Illinois food system to read. It's on our website. You're more than welcome to read it. There's also a one-pager if you aren't interested in digging into a 20-page report, which I fully understand. So the way that the program is set up is that there are three main roles that folks can participate. The first role is as a lead agency, who are our direct subawardees of the grant. Our lead agencies are sort of the project managers for local food purchase assistance or Illinois Eats throughout their region. They are responsible for building relationships with farmers. They're responsible for determining where to distribute the foods that they're buying from farmers. And they're also responsible for sorting out the logistics that come with navigating a supply chain. And I will say the logistics side has really differed depending on the different lead agencies and the different farmers involved. As you might imagine, our food banks have a lot of that internal distribution infrastructure, like cold storage trucks. But we also have some smaller lead agencies who did not have cold storage trucks and generally maybe had a lack of cold storage. So I don't want to underestimate the how proud I am of all of our lead agencies for overcoming those supply chain issues. You can also participate, of course, as a farmer. You don't have a program like Illinois Eats without our wonderful farmers. Our growers and producers must meet one of our socially disadvantaged criteria, which I will go through on the next slide. And all of our farmers have to work directly with a lead agency. So they must partner with a lead agency who is willing and able to buy their products. And if they have the infrastructure to support distribution in any way, they also can support in that way. Our distribution sites are where the food is distributed, and this takes the form of a lot of different ways, but a classic model of the Illinois Eats or Local Food Purchase Assistance Program is a food bank as a lead agency, purchasing from local farmers and distributing that food to local food pantries. As I've alluded to, this model is just a model. There's a lot of different ways that this has taken shape in Illinois. We have a diversity of farmers and a diversity of lead agencies participating. And you'll note I have a dashed line directly from our farmers to our distribution sites. And that's to acknowledge that we do have some instances where our farmers are directly dropping off product to their local distribution site or their food pantry, which is just shortening that supply chain even more, which we love to see. So this is a list of what our advisory committee determined counted as socially disadvantaged farmers in Illinois. I'm not going to read through this list, but you will see BIPOC farmers, LGBTQ plus, veteran farmers. You also see a few that maybe are a little bit surprising, such as new farmers, which are all farmers who have been farming for less than 10 years, according to the USDA definition, which is an acknowledgement of just how hard it is to be a farmer generally. You'll also see greater than 50 miles or 30 minutes to the nearest distribution point. And we also have a final category of folks who are eligible to participate, which is all farmers and producers whose business is located in one of the following high vulnerability counties as determined by the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index. So this is a very, very zoomed out, high level take on how the program takes shape and how the money actually gets to the growers. As I mentioned, the funding starts at the USDA, and then that flows to our Illinois Department of Agriculture, which then flows to the Illinois Department of Human Services, and then the funding goes to our lead agencies from the Illinois Department of Human Services. And then once the lead agencies receive that funding, it then flows to our growers and producers. As you might imagine, because we're flowing through a federal agency and two state agencies, the funding flow has been clunky at times. I will also do want to point out that you don't see Illinois Extension in this funding flow, which might be surprising, but Illinois Extension is contracted by the Illinois Department of Agriculture to provide technical assistance support to all partners in the program. So those three roles that I mentioned earlier, we are providing technical assistance to our lead agencies, to our growers and our producers, as well as to our distribution sites. Moving now into the impact of the program in just 1 year and some of the data and success stories that demonstrate how powerful this program has been for the Illinois food system. So to date, we have 176 farmers who have sold their products to the Illinois Eats program. $16.2 million of local food has been purchased and has gone straight back into local, rural, and urban economies. We've trained 120 plus produce growers in the basics of food safety. 85 counties in Illinois have received Illinois Eats products, and 883 community sites have distributed Illinois Eats products. So touching a little bit more on our lead agencies, we had 15 different organizations who were awarded Illinois Eats funding. And you can see the spread of those agencies on the map to the right. One thing that I'm really excited about and we're really proud of is over half of our lead agencies received a state contract for the first time. And as you might imagine, state contracts are not easy to navigate. There's a lot of systems that you have to be a part of. There is a lot of reporting that is required. And over half of our lead agencies decided to plunge ahead with this program because they believed in the power of this program to uplift local farmers and provide high quality foods to their neighbors. 8 of our lead agencies are food banks. 3 are small community-driven hunger relief nonprofits, and 4 are farmer-focused grassroots organizations. To me, one of the really strong highlights of our program is the diversity of our lead agencies. The range of size and type of organization has really allowed our lead agencies to really uniquely serve their communities in ways that I would not have ever considered. And an example of that is Farmers Rising is one of our small farmer-focused grassroots orgs. And they, over winter, used the Illinois Eats program to support farmers who were dabbling with year-round growing, so 4 seasons growing. And in Northern Illinois, that's not a part of the state that is necessarily built very easily for 4 seasons growing, but it is a part of building a more resilient food system. So I really, really am just in awe of the creative approach to serving the community that our lead agencies have taken. Another example that I wanted to share is one of our food banks, Eastern Illinois Food Bank, decided really intentionally to spend their funding on purchasing local high quality proteins, which if you're in the food access or food pantry space, you might be aware of how challenging it is generally to find proteins to distribute. But certainly distributing high quality and local proteins is something that, dare I say, would be almost impossible without this program. This is a list of all of our lead agencies in case you're curious of who they are. This information is also available on our website, so I'm not going to spend time reading them all, but I'm just so proud of our lead agencies and how they've all implemented this program. So I mentioned that we have 176 farmers who have sold their products to Illinois Eats, and we have a map of our farmers as well on the right. And of our farmers, we were able to have direct phone call conversations with 121 of them to get more information about their farm and how the program is going and how Illinois Extension can better serve their needs. Of the farmers we talked to and of the farmers in the program, 21% are BIPOC owned. 55% of our Illinois Eats farms are female owned. And of the farmers we talked to, 63% report that their farm is growing. Additional information that I think really just attests the importance of this program, particularly for our new farmers, is we have 58% of the farmers in the program have been farming for less than 10 years, so meeting that USDA definition for new farmer. 41% have been farming for less than or equal to 5 years, which is really exciting, getting into the super new farmer territory. And 22% have been farming for less than or equal to 3 years. So I think this just really attests that this program was built and really does intend to support our brand new farmers in Illinois, acknowledging that having and finding a market is one of the most challenging parts of farming. And this program has allowed our farmers to focus on expansion and growing their business skills without worrying about having to find their markets. Another statistic that I think highlights are the newness and maybe smallness of our farmer businesses participating is that 50% of the farms have 1 to 2 employees on their farm, and 26% have 3 to 5 employees. We do have farms with more employees than that, but a vast majority had less than 5 employees on their farm. And shout out to Ed Dubrick. He's here posing with his poultry products that he is dropping off at Eastern Illinois Food Bank, which as I mentioned, is focusing their funding on purchasing directly from local meat producers. So this slide is not reflective of the products that have been purchased in the program, but rather reflective of the products that our Illinois Eats farmers produce on their farm. So very clearly you can see that most of our farmers produce vegetables. And next we have animal proteins. So 44% of our farmers produce animal proteins. I also want to note that our farmers could select multiple options, acknowledging that folks are not typically just a vegetable farm or just an animal protein farm, but rather they're growing a variety of products on their property. One thing that I found personally interesting is how small the dairy and grains bars were. Less than 10%, maybe even 5% of the farmers in our program produce dairy for the state of Illinois. And, I think this just also is somewhat of a reflection of the types of small and local farming that we have in Illinois, acknowledging that there are not many dairies and that there's potentially room for more. Wanting to call out too that the grains here are grains for human consumption and not just for animal consumption. I love this slide. Just, this is just a glimpse of a taste, if you will, of all the different products that we distribute in the Illinois Eats program. The diversity of products cannot be possibly encompassed on one slide. We're working on analyzing right now the types of products that our lead agencies have purchased in the program. But just look at how beautiful these products are. We have some fresh fruits and vegetables. We have local mushrooms, local honey, local yogurt, and local eggs. And I just want to acknowledge that our farmers, they work really long days sowing seeds and pulling weeds, and they're producing such a wide range of products for us to provide local foods to our neighbors who otherwise would not have access to these foods. So I'm really proud of our farmers for putting in the work, especially since for a lot of folks, this was their first time navigating a wholesale type market like this, which we will get to a bit more in the challenges and successes portion of my presentation today. We have 883 different sites that have distributed Illinois Eats products, and just look at that map, look at the coverage of that map. Each point on this map represents a site, a place in Illinois that was able to distribute locally grown products that were grown sometimes by farmers literally right across the street. And I don't want to underestimate the dignity that this has provided for the neighbors that we serve. I have one example from a lead agency who had one of her food pantries call her and ask, how soon does this yogurt have to be moved? Like, when is the expiration date? And when our lead agency shared that this yogurt was freshly made just the week before, the food pantry could not believe it, because food pantries typically are used to distributing food that is about to expire. They're typically distributing foods that are rescued, foods that grocery stores are not able to sell. And so the power of giving people who are already food insecure access to fruits and vegetables and grains and meats that are at the same quality that you would find at a farmer's market, um, is is not to be underestimated. And we heard pretty directly from some of our food pantries that a lot of the neighbors get really excited when they hear that Illinois Eats products are at the pantry, and have really had a lot of fun trying out new fruits and vegetables they otherwise might not have had access to. As I mentioned before, 85 counties in Illinois have been served. And I mentioned food pantries a lot, but I do want to acknowledge that our food pantries are not the only way that food is being distributed through the Illinois Eats program. We also have quite a few mobile markets, which are literally like mini grocery stores that are on a trailer, going from site to site. That helps especially folks in rural neighborhoods, but also there are mobile markets in Chicago as well, that serve our folks that live in food deserts in the city. We also have a few food box programs, which are work somewhat like a community supported agriculture box, a CSA box, which is a pre-filled box of a range of products, typically fresh fruits and vegetables, a few proteins, maybe a few shelf-stable items, and those are delivered sometimes, and often directly to the neighbors, which really reduces a lot of barriers to access for folks. Moving into the successes of the Illinois Eats program so far, acknowledging that it's been 1 year, there have been new supply chain coordination efforts established. So this program has really pushed our farmers and our lead agencies to strategically think about food distribution. And some examples of how this has really shined is we have farmers who are aggregating on behalf of small farmers. So sort of acting as their own mini food hub, and then bringing those foods to a food pantry. One of our food banks directly picks up products from the meat processor since it's on their distribution route already to their food pantries, rather than farmers having to deal with cold storage and figure out how to bring their products safely all the way to the food bank. As I mentioned, we have some farmers that are dropping off directly at the food pantry. And we have had a few official food system or food aggregators that were fully established to meet the needs of Illinois Eats, which I will touch on a bit later. As I've mentioned a lot, and I'm really proud of, we have a diversity of lead agency types and sizes, and I really do think that this is one of the strong successes of the program in Illinois. It's allowed creative solutions both for our farmers, but also for our distribution sites in their community. Another unique example that I want to call out is Black Oak Center is using this program to fund a medically tailored box, so also known as an RX box or a food as medicine box, and delivering those boxes directly to the neighbors in Pembroke Township. Another neat part that is really helpful for our farmers is that certainly not all of our farmers have the capacity to serve a large market such as a food bank or a local food aggregator. So it's been really nice to have farmers of different sizes and different parts of their journey to match make them with a market that is most appropriate for their size and the products that they sell. Another huge success of this program is that our farmers have upskilled a lot in their agribusiness practices. So we heard pretty early on that a lot of our farmers were viewing this program as their sort of intro to wholesale markets. And for a lot of our farmers, most of them had previously sold to farmers markets or direct to consumer, which looks a lot different than a wholesale market, as you might imagine. So when you enter wholesale markets, you have to start thinking of things like contracts. How much am I going to grow for you? How much can I expect to receive cost-wise? And when can I expect to provide this food to you? A lot of our farmers also created their first invoices for the first time, which is an essential part of entering wholesale markets. We had farmers that were dealing with packaging. Certainly, if you're at a farmer's market, the packaging needs look a lot different than if you're dropping off boxes and boxes of tomatoes at your local lead agency. And so our farmers learned where to buy packaging. They learned what types of packaging are a best fit for the products that they're selling. They learned how to label those packages to meet food safety requirements, and also the nitty gritty of selling into wholesale, such as how big does this tomato have to be? Is a little bit of bruising okay? How many tomatoes should I pack per box? And I think there was a lot of opportunity here, and I think our farmers walked away with a better understanding and better equipped to potentially enter a wholesale market in the future. And as I've alluded to, our farmers also had a crash course in basic food safety requirements. Certainly, this program is serving an already vulnerable food insecure population, so we took our food safety requirements pretty seriously. One thing that was interesting to juggle as we were creating this program and determining what our food safety requirements would be is striking a balance between ensuring that the neighbors receiving the food are safe and are not at risk for foodborne illness. And on the flip side, ensuring that our farmers, the food safety requirements are not so intense that it is challenging for our farmers to meet those requirements. Especially socially disadvantaged farmers, it's very unlikely that they'll be able to just buy a cold storage truck and make sure everything's good. So we explored alternative options to ensure that products were kept at the correct temperatures, but still were delivered safely to the lead agency and the distribution site. For our farmers in particular, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, but I think is really important to the successes we've seen is the fair market value price list. So all of our farmers have to be paid fair market value, and that fair market value is a range of prices for each product. And farmers were required to be paid at least the minimum price of that range. They could be paid more in that price range if they had, organic growing practices, if they practiced regenerative agriculture, maybe their chickens were cage free. Maybe they were doing a lot of that distribution on their own and packing and storing and moving and transporting on their own. So there was room to pay farmers more within their price for their products to accommodate those needs as well as packaging. Our prices are at minimum wholesale, but leaning more towards retail prices. And that was an intentional decision by our team to ensure that our farmers, this program really did support our farmers in being able to do things like scale up production, to invest in on-farm infrastructure, which, as you might imagine, for new farmers and just farmers in general, if you're growing and you need to make that next step is often a huge financial risk and is really expensive in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So giving farmers extra income and extra cash to be able to invest in things like a station to wash their fruits and vegetables called a wash pack station, or maybe buying a cooler for on-farm storage to give their distribution supply chain a bit more breathing room. Our farmers have been able to hire more staff, which is really essential. We have farmers that have started new businesses. We have one farmer that restarted his family farm because of this program. We have a food aggregator, the Farms of Illinois, was launched in large part because of this program and using the funds from this program to buy things like that cold storage truck that you see and Clint Bland's adorable little son standing next to it. Our farmers have been able to pay off loans that they took out either to purchase land or purchase that on-farm infrastructure. They were able to enter new market opportunities, certainly within the program itself. But we have a few lead agencies that they do local food distribution and they sell to markets beyond Illinois Eats. So we have, long-term business partnerships that have developed that we hope will continue past this program and have already started, unlocking different opportunities for our farmers. This program's also allowed our farmers to unlock a better work-life balance. We had one farmer that had just had a child and was really thankful that this program allowed him to not have to staff a farmer's market every weekend and instead spend more time with his new son. And on a similar vein, we have had farmers that were able to quit full-time off-farm jobs because of this program. As you may or may not know, a lot of farmers in Illinois and generally new farmers, most farmers have off-farm income. They have full-time off-farm jobs to support their farming job. So unlocking an opportunity for our farmers to really farm is really, really essential for cultivating a more resilient food system and cultivating the next generation of farmers in Illinois. One of my favorite stories of this program is May Shao at Sunny Oaks Mushroom Farm. Sunny Oaks Farm is located in Sycamore, Illinois. And at the start of January 2024, May had reached a point where she was ready to expand her business. And she had taken a leap and taken out loans and built all the infrastructure required to build a 12,000 square foot warehouse that would allow her to make her own mushroom logs and would really just take her to that next step in production size. And that farm burned down in January of not that farm, but the warehouse burned down in January of 2024, which, as you can imagine, is an absolutely devastating thing to happen to a new farmer, especially taking that huge financial risk. And the extra income from the Illinois Eats program has given May some more breathing room to help her in rebuilding her farm and recovering from that huge financial loss. We have a full blog post about May if you're interested in hearing more about her story. She generally has a really incredible story and has been just a really strong partner for this program. Another success story that I would like to highlight is Max Elbritton down in Southern Illinois. Max had grown up on his family's farm and he had no intention of being a farmer, and he moved. He went to school, got a business degree, and was figuring out what to do with his life when he kind of felt a pull to come back to his family farm. And he was interested in potentially rebuilding and revamping his family farm and bringing it back to life. But as I've shared, you can start a farm, but if you don't have a market, you don't have a business. And Max knew that. And this program came at a really critical time for Max, and it allowed him to essentially rebuild his family farm almost entirely from scratch. And he is now a pork producer in the program and has just set up a really solid foundation for continuing his business in the future. We also have a blog story about Max that I would encourage you to check out in our blog called Cultivating Connections. Max is also featured in our video that highlights the successes of the program, which is on the front page of our website. And generally, seeing farmers like Max enter the Illinois food system are so important, especially when the average age of farmers in Illinois is 58. So this program has been a success as well for our community partners. It has allowed our distribution sites to tailor their food types to community needs and requests. Rooted for Good up in DeKalb sent out a survey to all of their distribution sites, directly asking what types of products do you want to see from this program, and then found farmers to meet those needs and delivered those products to their communities. As I spent some time elaborating on before, you cannot underestimate how much this program increases the dignity of the neighbors in Illinois that need food. It really is just a radical difference between receiving a farmer's market quality vegetable or fruit versus, a fruit or vegetable that is about to expire and is, days away potentially from being composted. It's also allowed our partners to offer hard to find pantry products like dairy, eggs, and meat. It's started to connect our local consumers to local farmers. I heard a few stories of our farmers who received phone calls from the people that were eating their food, just thanking them for growing such high quality and delicious food. And on the flip side of that, the farmers that I've talked to are really just so mission aligned with this program, and they so deeply believe, farmers are in the game to feed the people, and knowing that their food is going to folks that really need this nutrient dense food has just really inspired a lot of our farmers. It's also increased the awareness and benefits of local food. Certainly, local food has to travel a lot less far and is sitting, in a cooler or on a grocery shelf a lot less long. So these foods are high quality and nutrient dense. As I shared before, $16.2 million has been invested back into our local food system because of this because of this program. And certainly, if the bird flu pandemic has taught us anything, local food is the future. And so sharing and increasing the awareness of the benefits of local food is really important for driving this program success and the success of our food system as a whole. Next, we'll talk about the challenges and lessons learned. One does not run a almost $30 million program that has, almost 1,000 partners participating from different parts of the food system without encountering some challenges and lessons that they would take with them if they were to do a program like this again in the future. As I was reflecting on the challenges that we faced, to me, it felt like they fell into three main buckets. The first being a communication challenge, the second being challenges with agribusiness, and the third being challenges with supply chain coordination. So challenges with communication. As I alluded to earlier, participating in state grants have a lot of requirements. Particularly, they require that your organization is in both the GATA and the CSFA systems. These systems, as you might not be surprised to hear, take time to get into, and they can take weeks, if not months, to get an account fully set up and ready to use. And these systems, it is required that your organization has these systems set up before you even apply to state programs. So the communication side of this, I think, plays into having now learned our lessons. This is something that I would have communicated upfront and very frequently to any and all organization that was interested in applying as a lead agency, if not even hosting, an onboarding or a pre-onboarding for folks that are new to these systems and are would like support in navigating these systems. We had at least a few organizations that waited till the last minute to try to submit their application, and they were not able to officially apply because they didn't have the time to go through all the processes required to get set up in both GATA and CSFA. So communicating that upfront and early and offering some technical assistance, an abundance of technical assistance for folks navigating those systems. Also communicating the realities of federal funding cash flow. So I had that one slide that just gave you a taste of the flow from the USDA to the Illinois Department of Agriculture, to the Illinois Department of Human Services, then to our lead agencies, and then to our farmers. That flow takes a lot of time. It takes an extra amount of time because this program is set up at the USDA level as a reimbursement model, meaning that the USDA did not deposit $30 million, $28 million into the Illinois Department Agriculture account. The Illinois Department of Ag has to request a reimbursement for everything that's been spent every single month. That takes time because the USDA has to approve that, and then that has to trickle down through the state agencies and finally to our leads. Another learning that we had is that the best case scenario for this deeply bureaucratic system is from farmers selling their products to their lead agencies to receiving payment for that. The best case scenario is 60 to 75 days. And that's assuming there are no errors at all in the process. If there are errors, that can go even longer. So certainly that in and of itself was a huge learning for us. But I think communicating that the best case scenario is 60 to 75 days to every single partner in the program upfront would have been really, really important and beneficial. This is something that I would have wanted to communicate to our farmers so they were aware of the reality of this. This is something that I would have wanted to communicate to our organizations that were interested in applying, especially since we had organizations of all sizes and capacities apply, and acknowledging that not every organization has the cash flow on hand to not be reimbursed for 60 to 75 days. So making sure everyone is on the same page of how long that this takes, and that at this time, there is not a way to speed up this process. Another thing we learned is that, as you might expect with the sheer number of partners in this program, there is varying communication from our lead agencies to their partners, and generally from IDHS to our partners and extension to the partners. Which resulted in, especially early on, farmers, being really confused and maybe coming into the program with varying levels of preparedness. It resulted in some distribution sites that were completely unaware that they were receiving Illinois Eats products. We had some lead agencies that hosted like really in-depth farmer onboarding sessions, and were, constantly communicating with their farmers. And we also had um, farmers who had signed on as part of the application with a lead agency and then never heard from that lead agency again. So navigating the intricacies of partner communication and how we can best support that was certainly a challenge. And on the distribution site side, I had a farmer or I had a food pantry reach out. They were really excited about the program. They wanted to get involved. And when I checked, they were already receiving products from the Illinois Eats program and they just were unaware of it. So that's something that was certainly and is certainly a challenge, especially when we get into the consumer education piece of this. That's a missed opportunity for us to be teaching people where their food comes from, and connecting them more deeply with their local food system. One last note on the consumer education side, the sheer diversity and types of products that were distributed in this program were sometimes products that folks are unfamiliar with or are unfamiliar what to do with. So an example being, we had some lead agencies distributing whole chickens. I, as someone who works and loves cooking and is in the food system, don't know how to break down a whole chicken. So part of it too is like plugging in and figuring out where can extension support these consumer education needs. So there was a resource created, how to break down a whole chicken, but certainly, there is room for more support in consumer education, especially around local foods. In terms of agribusiness, there were lots of successes here, but generally there's additional technical assistance opportunities for every single piece of this of agribusiness. There's definitely support and need for more intentional wholesale one-on-one training. The Wisconsin LFPA program actually held a required onboarding and taught farmers the basics of, how to stack a pallet, where to buy packaging, how to pack your tomatoes, and also walking farmers through, what are the required pieces of an invoice. Our farmers are really interested in growing as a business, and so there's more support opportunities for increasing food safety knowledge and awareness, including things like the produce safety rule and support for individuals and farms interested in exploring GAP, which is required for a lot of wholesale markets. I will say that fair market value was a success and a challenge. We had some pushback, especially early on, from our food access folks that are used to buying as much product as they can to feed as many folks as they can for as little of a cost. So they were not thrilled with the idea of paying such high premiums for these local products. And then, on the sustainability piece as well, we've heard some pushback. And certainly, if we're looking to support our farmers after this program, there's very few businesses that will be able to support the prices that we are charging in this program for these products. And another challenge we faced is that we had our list, we had our prices for all the products. There was actually a mistake for one of the products early on, lettuce for the folks in the program. The lettuce range currently is really, really high. That's what was posted. We had farmers already plant seeds of lettuce in the ground, expecting those prices. And then when we changed that price to what it actually should be, we received a lot of pushback and heard loud and clear that that was not in the best interest of farmers who had already sown the seeds. So navigating, if and how and when you should change that price list was certainly a challenge. There's also a huge need for clear and defined farmer contracts. We kind of attempted this, but I don't think that they were as strong as they should have been. In the future, I would really like to guarantee that our farmers are paid in ideally 30 days, if not 60 days. And for the lead agencies that are unable to support that, finding alternative cash flows, alternative financing, low interest loans, and requiring them to have cash flow on hand to guarantee our farmers a net 60 or payment within 60 days, especially with how vulnerable farming is as a business. And of course, things that come with contracts, how much can the lead expect to buy at what price and what time. Supply chain coordination, we experienced lots of challenges as well. Not necessarily, and I'd say actually not a reflection of the program, is just Illinois has such a huge gap in infrastructure in the food supply chain. There is a huge lack of meat processors that makes it challenging for our farmers to get their meat processed. We have farmers that have to schedule processing dates over a year in advance, or are traveling 2 to 4 hours one way, or are traveling out of state. And cold storage comes up loud and clear across every single partner, distribution site, lead agency, and farmers. There's just a huge need for more cold storage in the state, and navigating and operating on bare bones infrastructure made this program challenging. Also, our state's really long. So we had some cases where folks were trying to get food from Southern Illinois to Northern Illinois, and just the challenges of trying to get food that far before spoilage was certainly some barriers. We had different levels of experience with food distribution across all partners, our farmers and our lead agencies. And there also was a lot of support needed for network weaving and matchmaking. So we had lots of leads who did not have any relationships with farmers and needed a lot of support to build those connections with farmers. And similarly, lots of farmers had reached out and were looking for support in getting connected with a lead agency. So there was a lot of support needed for that matchmaking that just made technical assistance such a critical component of this program. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip this slide. It just summarizes essentially the challenges that we faced and Illinois faces as a whole. I kept it in because we learned these actually in our listening sessions in 2023. And after a year of the program, these all are still true. Illinois still needs all 4 of these things for building a more resilient food system. So our recommendations, I would recommend that you clearly communicate and prepare folks for the realities of federal funding flows. I would recommend that there is a standardized onboarding process for every single partner that wants to be part of the program. All farmers would have to attend, all distribution sites would have to attend. We did actually have an onboarding process for our lead agencies, and I do think that helped kind of smooth the transition of navigating a federal or a state contract for the first time. But I would have liked to do that for all of the partners in the program. Certainly, I would require binding farmer contracts. So farmers do have to be paid in, net 60 at the latest. There to run a program like this to its full potential, this state would have needed more infrastructure investments in the food supply chain. We did get an influx of this through the local food infrastructure grant called LFPA, which was certainly a huge support and welcome support, but it just paints why grants like that are just so important to programs like this and beyond. I would also recommend allowing a diverse size and type of lead agencies to participate in the program because we saw so many benefits from that on our side. And my last slide for today, the top bullet point, communication. Communicate as much as you possibly can without being annoying to folks. We directly have newsletters with all of the partners in our program. You just cannot underestimate the power of making sure folks are on the same page. And also just knowing too that they have folks that they can talk to if they have concerns or they're facing challenges with the program. We also formed an advisory committee before and during the program, and I would recommend that you do the same. It was really helpful in shaping this program as it was being created. It included a huge variety of food system stakeholders. They were also super, super helpful in helping us overcome some of the early challenges and continuing challenges that this program is facing. I'm biased, but I really think having a backbone and technical assistance organization is so, so, so important. A lot of our challenges, particularly in technical assistance, like our agribusiness challenges, that the part of the reason we didn't get to those, and there's an opportunity for that, is because we did not have the capacity, even as a contracted technical assistance organization. And I think that we were able to sort of be a middle person between the state entities and the people. And I think that made a lot of folks more comfortable checking in with us or telling us their concerns in a way that I think is really valuable for shaping this program. Last nugget that I would recommend is offering virtual opportunities. People like people. They want to ask questions to a real person, not just send an email. We hosted regular office hours during the application period that were extremely popular. And folks were just so helpful, and they enjoyed getting direct answers right away from a real human. Not that email addresses are not real humans, but it's a bit different when you can see their face. We had farmers pop in, curious how to get involved. We also have ongoing and monthly farmer network meetings and lead agency meetings that have been really solid spaces for our folks to continue asking questions and receiving answers. And I do not want to underestimate the importance of really emphasizing the people first component of a program like this. I went over, I was supposed to give more time for questions, but I am going to wrap up and see if there are any pressing questions in the chat that I can answer.
Yes, thank you so much, Michaela. That was really inspiring to hear about all the impacts that the Illinois Eats program has had over the past year. I did just want to ask for questions that we aren't able to get to. Are you comfortable sharing your contact information? And are you comfortable if we share out this presentation to participants afterwards?
Yes, absolutely. I will pop my email address in the chat for folks that are running similar programs. And just generally, if you'd like to hear more about what we've learned, I am more than happy to connect over email or set up a short call.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Our first question was from Eleanor. She's a farmers market manager and was wondering if there's currently a list of farmers impacted by the program, and if not, if this is something you suggest following up to potential vendors.
Eleanor, that's a great question. I will say we do have a list of all the farmers that are in the program as well as their contact information. So yes, in a way, we do have a list of all farmers impacted by the program.
Our next question was from Alan, wondering if the USDA unfreezes LFPA like other states have reported, how much money could Illinois see and until when?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if the initial program is unfrozen, so we would have roughly, believe like roughly $10 million to spend, depending on how much we have after our January and February reimbursements go through. And this funding would last until September of 2025.
We have another question asking if you have calculated the economic impact of, increased income, access to healthcare, debt reduction, or if this is something that you hope to do.
I would absolutely love to do that. If you have any hints or pro tips of how to do that, I would more than welcome them. I know other states have used what is an economic impact calculator. So I'd be interested in exploring that a little bit more, but certainly that's something I would absolutely love to do. And please let me know if you have options. or suggestions.
Has there been any framing or messaging that has specifically worked for food access agencies? And is this an ongoing challenge?
I would say ongoing challenge because, again, some of our distribution sites don't know that they're part of the program. We do send a newsletter to our distribution sites roughly every other month, which has seemed to help a little bit. We also did compile a list of free resources that SNAP-Ed educators already had for seasonal and locally produced proteins and fruits and vegetables. And that is available at no cost, just in a Google Drive to all of the distribution partners in the program. We also had like Illinois Eats posters and handouts that our lead agencies could order at no cost to them. That could be, either hung up at their distribution site or handed out or put into boxes. And folks seem to really enjoy having those physical handouts as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Since we are at time, I'm just going to share out this poll. Um, if you guys would please take the time to do this, it would be so appreciated. But thank you all so much for attending. And of course, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to follow up with Michaela.
Thank you all so much. Thanks also to all the interpreters.